Welcome to Increasing Empathy and Teamwork Using the Enneagram. My name is Allie Barnett, and I am a CTRI registered nurse and director of Justin's Place in Wilmore, Kentucky. We're going to jump right in. So our objectives today are to gain a basic understanding of the 9 Enneagram types, begin the work of growing in self-awareness and self-development, and learn some tips on how to understand, work with, and empower your teammates at your center. So what is the Enneagram? At its absolute simplest form, you could say it's a personality test, but I like to think of it as something more than that. It's been around for a really long time, and its intention is really to help people develop themselves and kind of see where they might be blindsided to their own growth and push past that and learn more about other people and themselves in the process. It allows you to take a step back and kind of see, oh, this is like how I view the world, and maybe other people don't see it this way, and how do they see it? This hopefully results in deeper self-knowledge and awareness and empathy for others. I will tell you that I bit off more than I can chew when it comes to this webinar. So it is going to be a really surface level introduction to the Enneagram, and hopefully you will walk away with some practical tips and some information about how to get started using it for yourself. And for me personally, the Enneagram kind of rocked my world because it just really shifted my perspective in seeing the value in every person and seeing that people who are totally different than me, that I disagree with on multiple things on fundamental levels, they still have great value, and I have a better understanding of where they're coming from now. And so I feel like I'm able to get along a little bit better with other people, as well as it helped challenge me a bit in my self-awareness and my growth, and seeing where my shortcomings are and being able to kind of work on that. As we move through this webinar, I have a worksheet available to you, so you can take down some notes on that as we go on the types, to try and start to develop a picture of each of these types, and put down some stars next to the types when we identify with them. So we're going to have 5 statements for each type. So jot down a star if you're like, oh, that sounds like something I would say. Also, feel free to jot down names of individuals in your life or at your center when a type reminds you of them. We don't want to judge or type other people, but we want to be in a state of observing and reflecting people in our lives and trying to think, maybe this would be a better way to handle this individual, because maybe they're a type 9 or a type 8. Okay, so we're going to jump right in. We're going to go 1 to 9. Number 1 is our perfectionists. These people, our visual is this, so it can be a wagging finger or we're going to go first. We're going to do what's right. They might say things like, I don't like it when people ignore or break the rules. I feel like it's my responsibility to leave the world better than I found it. I immediately notice when things are wrong or out of place. Or I often feel like I try harder than others to do things correctly. So again, if those all really resonate with you, throw down 4 stars on your paper next to number 1. These people really value doing things correctly and to the best of their abilities in the right way. They are principled, purposeful, self-controlled, and can be very perfectionistic and hard on themselves to make sure that they do things correctly. They are fearful of being corrupt or evil or defective, and their basic desire is to be good and have integrity. My personal example of this in my life is my mother-in-law, Gladys. She does things to a T. If you ask her to help clean your kitchen floors, she's going to be on her hands and knees scrubbing it with a toothbrush in the corners. She thinks there's a right way to do everything, and she makes sure to do it that way every time. Her house is immaculate. When our kids go to her house, they don't drink faucet water, they drink bottled water. She just has really high standards for herself, and also applies that to others because for her, that's the right thing to do, right? So very high morals, very principled in many areas of their life. A common misconception is that these people are like controlling or OCD or type A, but again, they're not meaning to be that. It's just that they want the best for themselves and for other people, and they wouldn't understand why you wouldn't want to do it for that standard, because it's the best. It's what they and others deserve. So that's our wagging finger, number one. Type 2 is our helper. So our visual is a heart. These people are all about relationships and caring for the needs of other people. So they might say things like, when it comes to taking care of others, I don't know how or when to say no. Even when I don't know, even people I don't know share deep things with me. It seems like people who love me should already know what I need. I'm more comfortable giving than receiving. Lots of people ask me for help and it makes me feel valuable. Again, throw down some stars if that's statements that you identify with, or maybe some people in your life that kind of sounds like. So these people are really caring, interpersonal, generous. They're demonstrative of their care and their love for people. They can be people pleasing. They can be possessive of people in their lives. Their basic fear is being unwanted or unworthy of love. And their basic desire is to feel loved. So my example for this is my previous small group leader, Christina. She basically devotes her whole life to serving people in her personal life and in her professional life. She is always empathetic and asking you how your day was and how that test was that you took, or how your appointment went that you told her about a month ago. She's very in tune for what's going on in people's lives. When we would have small groups, she would bring us homemade brownies and tea and a space heater and blankets, and she just wanted everyone to be comfortable and happy. So that's a great demonstration of a type 2. When these types are unhealthy, they can be codependent. But a common misconception is that they are clingy or a pushover. It's not that they are a pushover or clingy. What they value most is caring for other people's needs. And so that's how it can come across sometimes. But truly, they're just caring of others. Type 3 is the achiever. So our visual for this one is a to-do list. They're very task-oriented. They might say things like, the keys to my happiness are efficiency, productivity, and being acknowledged as the best. I don't like it when people slow me down. I'm great at multitasking. I can find a way to connect and win over almost anyone. I love setting and accomplishing measurable goals. So if that sounds like you, give yourself some stars. I bet we know of several 3s I would guess would be in this equine industry, because in our field, you do have to do it all a lot of times. So if you're successful in the field, a lot of times you're a 3 because you're able to do it all. These people are success-oriented, pragmatic, adaptable, excelling. They're very driven on their own. They don't need external motivators. They're image conscious. So they care what people think, and they want people to be recognized for how good they are at what they do. They do not want to be worthless. They do desire to be valuable or worthwhile. My example for this type is someone who I work with who's kind of my administrative boss. Her name is Joy. She is excellent at everything she does. She's kind of like the master at everything. And if you give her an idea, she's like, oh yeah, like let's do it. Let's work out the details. Let's make it happen. And she's also really good at seeing giftings and skills in other people and kind of like empowering them to accomplish a goal together, which is a really special skill when working alongside a 3. She can be really, really personable and approachable with people, especially when it's to get a goal done, if that makes sense. So if someone's having a struggle, she can help empower them to overcome that and get a goal completed. She's always on the goal. She's always has 10 to 15 things on her to-do list, and is like very satisfied to knock out those things on her list. A common misconception of threes are that they can be manipulative or dismissive of people. And again, it's not that they're trying to manipulate you or that they are trying to be rude or dismissive of you. It's just that on their brain, they have their to-do list. They have the things that have to get done. And that is what really brings them a lot of satisfaction, is those tasks. All right, that brings us to type 4, which is the individualist. The mohawk is your visual for this one. It's a little bit extreme, but I would say that most people who get a mohawk don't not want attention. They want to express themselves. They want to dye it a fun color and style it and stick it up in the air. So that's kind of the visual for our type 4s. They might say things like, I like things that are unconventional, dramatic, and refined. I'm definitely not a fan of the ordinary. I never really felt like I belonged. Some people think I am aloof, but I'm really just unique. I'm okay with sad songs, sad stories, and sad movies. I worry a lot about abandonment and can tend to push people away. So these guys are really deep feelers. They are sensitive, introspective, expressive, dramatic. They can be self-absorbed. They can be temperamental. Their biggest fear is to have no personal significance or identity. Their biggest desire is to find themselves or their significance in the world. So a lot of deep feelings with these individualists. My example for this one is my cousin Micah. She every time I see her, she has a different hairstyle, a different color hair. She wears whatever she wants. That's really self-expressive. She shops at Goodwill and wears combat boots and crazy clothes. She's done multiple different artistic projects and started some different things and accounts on Instagram with her art. She's always been involved in drama club. And she's one that does not seem to shy away from people just because they're broody or sad or have a dark side. She seems really welcoming of others who have deep feelings and thoughts. So that's kind of our individualists. They're not super common, but definitely we probably all have some in our lives. Type 5 is the investigator, and our visual cue for this one is a book. So these are our brainiacs, our people that like to learn and know and fully understand. They might say things like, I don't always say things out loud, but in my head, I'm pretty sarcastic and cynical. I need a couple of days to process an experience to know how I feel about something. Often, I'd rather observe than participate. In groups, being uninformed makes me very uncomfortable. I need time alone. I think thoughts are more reliable than feelings. So jot those down, give yourself some stars if you relate to that or if you know someone this sounds like. These people are intense, cerebral, perceptive, innovative, can be secretive and isolated. Their biggest fear is being useless, helpless, or incompetent. And their biggest desire is the opposite, to be capable, to be competent, good at what they do and what they know. My example for this is my husband, Jeremy. He is a lifetime learner. He has an undergraduate and a double master's degree in biblical and theological studies. He's currently now going to school for a firefighting degree so that he can promote in his field. He just wants to fully know and understand everything that he can in topics that he is interested in. My family would say that they've never seen him mad because he's really cool and calm on the surface. He's always sitting back and observing. He's not really one to like get into a big argument on a topic he's not interested in or dance at weddings. Like he'd rather just sit back and observe people and kind of like take note of what's going on. If you get on a topic that he's interested in, he'll chat your ear off and would love to pick your brain about it and can be really social in that way. I think of them kind of as extreme introverts. A common misconception of type 5s is that they're uninterested in what's going on, or maybe they're bored or boring. But that's not true. They just need to fully know and understand the situation before they can step in and engage, be social, and act in the situation. All right, that brings us to type 6. We've got a couple more to go. So type 6 is the loyalist. We have a caution sign for them because they proceed with caution. They're always looking out for the best interest of everyone that's in their lives. Some people say they're the glue that holds the world together. They might say things like, I'm always imagining and planning for the worst. When my partner and I are doing well, I find myself wondering what will happen to spoil it. I tend not to trust those in authority or those who give me too many compliments. It helps me to have things in some kind of order. People say I'm loyal, understanding, and compassionate. So these are our cautious people who are looking out for the greater good of the group. They are committed, security-oriented, engaging, responsible, anxious, and suspicious of others. They can be fearful of not having support or guidance in a situation, and their desire is to have security and support. My example for this one is my sister, Cheney. She, when I first founded my first nonprofit, Safe Haven Equine Ministries, and I threw it out there to her and got her opinion. She's a licensed counselor. She immediately was like, oh, well, what's your liability release going to look like? And who's going to be supervising this? And what is their credentials? And how are you protecting yourself in case you get sued? And how are you training the horses? She's very much like thinking of all of the possible scenarios because she wants me to be protected, right? And she doesn't want me to go into a dangerous situation. So these people are great at helping you kind of safeguard yourself when you're coming up with new ideas. She is the one that when we go hiking together, she's like thinking about getting murdered or getting lost in the woods. She's helping keep us safe. And these people have a pretty good eye because they're suspicious of people. So when they don't, it takes a while to earn their trust, and they're also able to sniff out dishonesty in people. So she always was good at picking boyfriends of mine when we were growing up who were good keepers and those who were not. A common misconception is that they're really anxious all the time and they suffer from anxiety, but that's not necessarily true. They just have the need to have a plan and know that like safety is a priority and what's the plan if something goes wrong. All right, we've got 3 left. So this brings us to the type 7, which is one of my personal favorites. I have found that in my life, I have a lot of 7s I coincidentally surround myself with. They may say things like, I suffer from fear of missing out. It's hard for me to finish things. When I get close to the end of a project, I start thinking about the next thing. And then I get so excited, I just move on. I quickly get bored with the same routine and like to try new things. I'm always up for a last-minute adventure. I don't like making hard and fast commitments to things. And their visual is confetti because party, right? They're always looking for the fun thing. They're always looking for the next thing. They always are down to go to a party. These people are busy, variety-seeking, spontaneous, versatile, and scattered. Their fear is being deprived of like a good time or pleasure or being in pain. And their basic desire is to be satisfied, content, and have their needs fulfilled. My example for this is one of my best friends, Katie. She is one of the funnest, most social people I know. She's always down to like, hey, let's go grab a beer in the afternoon, or hey, let's go buy a plant. I call her the crazy plant lady because she just loves her plants and she's very into whatever she's into in the moment. She renovated an Airstream over like 2 years to live into while also jumping around to other projects in the middle of it. She tends to run late and not be on time. At times, she can be kind of non-committal to plans, but once you're there and engage with her, she is the most engaging, personable person because it's like whatever she's into in that moment is the most exciting, best thing ever. So she makes a great friend and it's always great fun. A common misconception about 7s is that they're happy all the time. But that's not true. They feel just as deep as the rest of us. It's just sometimes they need to stop moving and doing projects in order to feel and accept that sadness. And then also that they can be irresponsible. But again, it's not true. It's just that their focus might be a little bit shorter than other people. So they will come back to that task that they are responsible for, but they might have to jump around to 3 or 4 projects first before they come back to that original task. Which brings us to type 8. Type 8s might say things like, I've been told I'm too blunt or aggressive. I enjoy a good verbal skirmish to see what people are made out of. It's hard for me to trust people. I make decisions fast from the gut. I don't mess with the people I love. Doing things halfway is not my spiritual gift. And I don't like when people beat around the bush. So our visual for this is a sword, because they are often going to bat for someone. And they do like to defend the weak and vulnerable, but they also can be aggressive unnecessarily or controlling in certain situations. So it's a good thing, and it can be used as a good thing, but sometimes it's seen as too aggressive or maybe even violent. These people are powerful, dominating, self-confident, decisive, willful, and can be confrontational. They do not want to be harmed or controlled by others, and their main desire is to protect themselves or be in control of their own life and their own destiny. My example for this one is my brother-in-law, Andrew. He is the type of person, when he walks into the room, he kind of has this deep booming voice, and he has like a presence that just steps into the room, and it kind of can be felt. He won't let you get away with anything. So if you say something like, I am a proponent or I support XYZ cause, he'll be like, oh, really? Well, what do you do? How do you donate to that? How are you actually actively supporting that cause? Like he won't let you live down anything that you say you're going to do. He's incredibly competitive when it comes to games with my family. He will apply the rules like very strongly, and will give you a lot of tough love and raise his voice when it comes to games. And he is super self-motivated. Like, he's done marathons and these crazy hikes all over the world, and accomplishes great feats because he just wants to get it done and show that he can. If you tell him, Andrew, I bet you can't dunk on that goal, he's gonna go dunk on the goal just to prove you wrong. A common misconception of this type is that they can be kind of jerks or abrasive, but that's not necessarily true. They just don't have time in their mind for those like common pleasantries that happen in social engagements, and they're not afraid to speak their mind. So they're just like, all right, like, let's cut to the chase. I like you, I don't like you, this is what's going to happen, whatever it is in the time being. They just are efficient at getting that done and reaching their goals in the moment. So type 9 is our last one. They're a contrast to the 8 in some ways. Their symbol is the peace sign because that's what they value above all else. They may say things like, I'll do almost anything to avoid conflict. Sometimes I get lost in doing trivial tasks while the things that really need to get done get put off. I'm happy to go along with whatever others want to do. I find routines at work and home comforting. I am quietly stubborn when people put demands on me. Other people see me as more peaceful than I really am. So these people want to be comfortable, they want to be cozy, they want everyone to get along, they do not like conflict. They're easygoing, self-evasive, receptive, reassuring, agreeable, complacent. Their basic fear is of loss or separation. And their basic desire is to have stability and peace of mind. So my example for this is one of my good friends, Sarah. She is the friend who will never pick what restaurant to go to. And if we're in the point where we're hanging out and we're like, oh, well, do you want to watch this movie or that movie? Like, she will hardly ever pick anything because she just wants everyone to be happy. Not to say that they can't be confrontational when needed, because she is actually a barn manager of a really successful farm in our area. but she does hate to have hard conversations with people or let staff go. It just really tears her up. She is very concerned about keeping the peace and making sure that everyone is happy. A common misconception with type 9s is that they don't have opinions or they're pushovers, which is not true. They do have opinions and they can stand their ground. It's just that they value peace more. So they value having everyone be on the same page and in agreement more than they value making their statement known. Okay, we made it through the 9 types. So let's review before we move on to some practical tips about dealing with individuals in each type. So the perfectionist, that's our wagging finger. They do what is right, and that's what is most important. Our helper is our heart. They care for others. They're really relationally driven. They are caretakers. Type 3 is the achiever. They've got that to-do list. They're on their way, marking things off, task-oriented, achieving, accomplishing. The individualist is our mohawk. They love being unique, being different than everyone else. Deep feelers, can be really artistic. The investigator, type 5, it's all about knowing, understanding. They're more of an observer, not an engager. The loyalist is our caution sign. They want to be safe. They want to have a plan. They want to make sure everyone is being safe. The 7 enthusiast is confetti, all about having fun, being impulsive, making the most of life. Type 8 is the challenger. Most important to them is having control and dominating their environment and getting things done. Number 9, peacemaker, keeping the peace, making sure everyone's in agreement, everyone's happy, on the same page. So something just to take note of as we went through these, if you put a lot of stars down for yourself on 2 numbers that were next to each other, so maybe you put 4 stars down for a 2 and a 3, or a 5 and a 6, that's really common. And most people have a primary type and then a secondary type, which is called a wing. And I will say it wraps around. So if you have 9 and a 1, you could be a type 9 with a 1 wing. Or a type 2 with a 3 wing. So that's something to take into consideration when it comes to yourself. Your homework, since we don't have time to get through all of this, is to begin the work of self-improvement and development. So as we go through these types again, there will be a slide that says paths to growth for the type. So it's a way to challenge yourself specifically with a measurable goal. So I encourage you when we're done to go back and pick one of those bullet points on the path to growth, to work on yourself and begin growing and developing yourself to be a better person. What we will spend time on is the 9 types and how to engage with these types in a farm setting in the work that we do in equine assisted services, some jobs that you can give to those people, and some ways to handle them to make them feel like an effective parent, volunteer, or staff. So here's the path for growth for 1 that you're going to do your homework on, right? So we're going to skip over these. Here's some specific tips for empathy for type 1. In a nutshell, it's good to provide structure for ones and clear expectations and clear feedback about what you liked and didn't like. When it comes to ones on your team, they can be an excellent candidate for a review committee on improvement. So have them look at an area of your program or how your tack is stored, or examine the fences and make notice observations about what's bad and what needs to be changed, or what could be better or done better more effectively. You can task them for safety checks, fence checks, areas of concern at your farm. Make them responsible for tasks, smaller tasks that must be done right. So if there's like a horse that needs a special tack, show them how to put it on, why it needs to go on this way, and then they will do it that way every single time. If there's a training procedure where A has to be done before B or it won't be effective, they're always going to do A before B. Keeping track of paperwork, they're very detail oriented and will make sure that things are done correctly. If you give them control over a small project with specific guidelines, that's good for them. maybe like making a color-coded feed chart. Cleaning. So cleaning a specific area with specific instructions is best so that they can do things the right way. Use this product on the tables, this product on the toilets, whatever it is. And give them, like, it might seem like minute directions or maybe insulting to their intelligence, but it's not. They just want to know exactly how to do it. If you're like, go clean the tap room, I don't care, that's not good for them. But if you say, go clean the tap room, here's where the broom is, I usually just sweep it into the dustpan and throw it out in the grass. And then I use a wet cloth just to wipe down XYZ and Windex the window. That's perfect for them. They want that specific direction so that they can do things right. Do not put them in charge of others who will not be that way, who will be difficult to manage or sloppy. And do not expect them to be creative and dream about hypotheticals or things that don't exist. They're not going to be good for a new project committee. Rather, they're going to be really good at critiquing what already exists. Okay, there's your paths of growth for 2, your homework for your 2s. Empathy, in a nutshell, for 2s is know that they are sensitive and they care about people, and they can be sensitive to criticism or harsh feedback. And they just want to know that your needs are taken care of and that you value that they're looking out for you and your personal needs. 2s on your team, they can be great at volunteer appreciation committees or projects. They can be great at meet and greet, or maybe like a door greeter at an event. They will sit and chat and be really considerate with people. They might be great at directly working with the population that you serve or serving parents. You can have them plan projects that serve others. So like, man, we need a parent appreciation day, or designing a calming room for a kiddo when they're having a hard time or a meltdown. Do not give them jobs that are task or efficiency focused. So they want to be people focused. They want to have the opportunity to spend 30 minutes chatting with a volunteer about how their day went. They don't want to have to get things done in a hurry. And don't use harsh or frequently negative feedback with anyone, but especially 2s. They will really take it to heart. Don't shrug off their consideration for others and acts of service. So if they took time to go grab you a bouquet of flowers or write you a card like, man, thank you so much for doing that, that was so thoughtful, that's really going to feed them. These are people you want to approach by saying, I need your help. Like, they will help you if it's a personal thing. And also, like, thank you for helping me. Thank you for helping that parent. Everything is about people, right? Okay, our type 3s are to-do list, task-oriented individuals. Here's your path for growth for your homework. And then them, as far as empathy goes for our type 3s, they love having that to-do list. They like their feedback. They like to be recognized for what all they were able to accomplish. So hard things are good for 3s too, like a challenge. Praise their accomplishments. So 3s on your team, if you give them a challenging, measurable goal on something they expressed interest in, that would be the ideal scenario for a 3. So maybe if they say something kind of offhand, like, hey, I bet if you advertise to local schools, you could, get a lot more participants. Cool. So you task them with a goal to recruit 5 new participants from XYZ schools and advocate for your services. So you're not telling them what to do. You're saying, oh, that's a great idea. Do you think that you could maybe recruit 5 people? And they're like, yeah. Then you can give them tools if they ask for it, but let them take over that project. They say, man, my neighbor could so easily donate the money you need for that item. You could say, oh, how could I support you in making this happen? So supporting them and giving them specific challenging individual goals. And they can be in leadership roles. For example, they might really excel in training volunteers or training on certain procedures. Tackling keeps coming to mind, but like feeding your horses, or cleaning tack, or how to disinfect your programming cabinet. So they can be someone who trains on that. So everybody at your facility knows, oh, you go to Sarah to get trained on that. You can give them a project or a project horse if appropriate. If they're horsey, you know, Dixie needs to work on picking her feet up and having better manners in the cross ties. Awesome, they can do that. Do not assume that they can only do small achievable tasks as well. They can have and handle larger projects. Don't take their lack of personal interest or conversation personally. They might just have something on the brain that they've got to get to and get done. It's not about you. So where twos are about people, threes are more about accomplishment and admiration. So in any of these scenarios about challenging them to recruit volunteers, you could say things like, man, our board would love to hear about that project. Or I know that our parents would really love if that happened. They would be really impressed if we could make that happen. I would love to be able to tell them that you did that for us. That recognition piece is really important. Here are our paths for growth for 4. Take home homework. Empathy for 4 basically is being authentic and kind of like creating space for them and appreciating them and their feelings and their uniqueness. So we are being very authentic with them. They don't like people that put up a front or are like superficial. So you want to be real with them and give them space to feel and create as they see fit. 4s on your team can be great assets. Let them design something that has like a wide range of possibilities, kind of like anything goes. You don't want them to have a specific goal. For example, they could create or design the monthly cork board from scratch for volunteer appreciation. So they could pick the theme, they could put quotes up, they could paint a star or a flower that represents each volunteer. They could figure out ways to display the names. It doesn't matter, right? Like whatever they want to do is going to be good. That has to be the expectation with 4s. You can task them with creating a lesson plan or activity for your program. So like, hey, we need an activity working with the minis to help teach responsibility. Can you think of like a metaphor of a way that we could teach that? They might love to do that. Let them display their creative talents. So maybe they write a poem for your blog, or they perform music at a fundraiser, or display a piece of art inspired by your nonprofit in the volunteer space. Utilizing and recognizing their artistic talents is great. Do not give them efficiency-based tasks with little room for creativity. That just won't be satisfying for them. They won't enjoy it. They won't stick around. Don't expect them to be all in or all on board without telling them the higher purpose. So remember, they want to know their meaning in the world and the grand scheme of things. So if you're like, hey, go design this, they might, but it would be more likely if it's like, man, we want to really create a culture of acceptance and joy and peace at our farm. And by really acknowledging our volunteers and appreciating them, that just like helps everything go so much smoother, and it helps us create moments of peace and joy for our kids. Then they're going to be like, I'm all in. That's a good way to talk to a 4. On the other side of that, when you thank them, you can say like, man, I love that you came up with that. That was such a beautiful way to go about that. I really appreciate your creativity in that venture. Okay, here's our paths for growth for type 5, your homework. Empathy for 5s, and in general, if you know any skills on how to handle extreme introverts, most of that applies to 5s. So they want to know what's coming. They want to know what to expect. We don't want to change the plan on them unexpectedly, and we don't want to put them on the spot. So place them in a role where they can have all of the information that they need to do that role. So that might look different for individuals. They need to know what's expected of them and need to know all of the information. So a role that's unpredictable might not be the best scenario. If they are horsey, they can be really great leaders because they have no one's responsibility to engage with the people, right? They're focused on the horse. Feeding crew, because this animal can't have this speed, but he can have this speed, and this is where you put this animal, and this is how you tie a quick release knot. And there's lots of information and tasks that can be put alongside feeding crew, so that might be a good option for them. You can task them to do research. Again, these people love to investigate and know and fully understand. So maybe there's a concept that you're curious about that you need information before you implement it in your program. Maybe even things like just deep pressure for children with autism, like find out everything you can about this for me. Or maybe researching a grant and the history of the grant and what types of foundations they previously donated to. Do not put them on the spot, especially in front of people. My husband hates that, especially when it comes to their opinion or knowledge. They will say it when they are ready. And do not change the plan if you can avoid it. So having an expectation is really, really important for these individuals. When it comes to thanking them, you can say things like, it's obvious you really understood that training well and you were able to apply it. I appreciate that you really listened to the details in that training that we did. So you're acknowledging their ego, honestly, and their brain, their knowledge, and their capacity to do and to understand. Here's our path for growth for sixes, and our empathy for sixes is helping them feel comfortable and safe and validated. We don't want to overwhelm them with concerns or additional tasks, or take their questions and their poking holes offensively. We just want to help create a supportive environment for them and kind of be aware of their needs, whatever they need to feel safe and secure in the task that they've been given. Place them in advisory roles. So committees to oversee or help plan events or programs, because they have that ability to take a step back and see all of the potential pitfalls, concerns, liability issues. They are great at raising those concerns. They might not be great at finding solutions for them, but they can raise those concerns in a group that then can kind of do what needs to be done in order to make it safe. They also make great board members for that same reason. You can train them in a lesson role to utilize their safety awareness skills. So I have a lot of sixes that are leaders and sidewalkers, and I very much appreciate my sixes because they are the ones that catch the stirrup that's on backwards, or remind me to do a girth check, or whatever it is in the moment. They can be an assistant to the instructor, or maybe help with mounting and dismounting, something where safety is really important. That's something that they can be involved in. Do not give them large to-do lists. They will get overwhelmed. And do not take it personally, again, if they poke holes in your plan. They're just trying to help make sure everybody stays safe. When you thank these guys, so again, don't take offense. It's thank you for bringing that to my attention. Even if it's something that didn't need to be brought to your attention, like thank you for paying attention and not being afraid to speak up, right? Thanks for keeping us safe. So our paths of growth for sevens, our visual is our confetti, fun times, there's your homework. Empathy for our sevens. They need variety. They need energy. They need opportunities. They need flexibility. They need all of the multifaceted fun things at your farm. Have them be a floater or a jack of all trades. So these people can help in the day-to-day operations, but doing the same thing, same time every week, not going to be the best fit for them. They probably won't stick around too long because they'll get bored. They can be a great substitute because it's a different kid that they're working with sporadically. Also, even in the same day, you could say, can you sub as a sidewalker and then clean the bathrooms and then detangle Millie's mane? It's looking really rough. Like that would be an ideal day for them, to have some different things to look forward to and jump around that don't really have any time constraints. Seasonal jobs are great, like maybe weight taping the horses, sheath cleaning, painting jumps, or spring cleaning. These are all things that sevens would probably be happy to jump in on because they know they're not going to have to do it for another year. Let them do the fun parts of an event or a project. So maybe you task them with creating centerpieces for an event or ordering supplies. So like, hey, I want something that's going to look fun and be functional for this project. Can you shop around on Amazon and send me some links? They would be more than happy to do that. Do not let them become unengaged or bored, because as soon as they do, they're gone. As they stay engaged and interested and asking for more projects, they will serve in every aspect of your program. Okay, here's our path of growth for 8. Remember, our symbol is our sword because they are defenders of the weak and vulnerable and can be aggressive. When it comes to empathy for 8s, they like straightforward feedback. They don't like to beat around the bush. They do not like to be controlled or micromanaged, which can be challenging to have 8s or parents, or sorry, volunteers or parents who are 8s. But they, again, are super useful and just need to be handled correctly. So you can put 8s in your lesson volunteer roles. You can set clear expectations for them and empower them and give them independence to function in that role. So they can really serve in any capacity. They just need to have direction and then some freedom within that role. So like, this is what you do, this is when you come, this is what is expected, and then step back and let them do it. You can also task them to lead a really high challenge project. So again, these are the people that if you tell them they can't do something, they will do it just to spite you. So like, raise $5,000 for a new horse, raise $30,000 for a new building. Find a way to keep us from going bankrupt. That would be a very appealing challenge to an 8. Find a way to hire new staff, even though we can barely pay our bills. Find a way to get this program to function despite XYZ challenges, maybe transportation or scholarship needs. They might just come back with a full plan that works and that you could implement, and they would help you implement. Do not micromanage them, and don't beat around the bush or give non-specific feedback. So these people, these 8s, like whenever people stand up for themselves. So you can say, you know, hey, that's not the way we do things. Like, I really appreciate that you took the initiative to XYZ, but this is the way it has to be done. Specifics, right? Not like, oh, you're kind of like being a little too pushy. Like, that doesn't mean anything. So specific feedback is important. With 9s, here's your path of growth. And here are your empathy for 9s. So they also kind of fall into that introvert category. They like predictability. They like peace. They don't like to rock the boat. They just like everything to be good. So when you have 9s on your team, you can give them roles where they are responsible for one thing. That would not be a confrontational thing. So that could be, they could be a good leader or a good sidewalker in your lessons, but just be cautious that maybe they wouldn't speak up if there was a safety need or concern. You can put them on a team because they serve really well as mediators in a team. So if you have a committee or a project that's happening that has a group in front of it, they are really good at blending into that team. And then whenever, like, say if a conflict pops up in an argument, and if you're hosting an event and you're trying to decide to have it at the country club or at the farm, and it's a big dispute, 9s will step in and try and find some common ground, trying to get everyone on the same page, see the perspectives from both ways, and they will help that decision be made, and so that the group can then move along. So even though they're not confrontational, they actually, their work as peacekeepers is really good and effective in a group. Do not reprimand them if they speak up, even in any capacity, because it probably took them so much courage to speak up and say something semi-confrontational. So always thank them and value their input. and don't put them in supervisory roles requiring confrontation. It's just not going to be healthy for them. They're not going to enjoy it. They won't stick around. Okay, so we've made it through all of our tips and the 9 Enneagram types. I hope that some of that was helpful to you and your resources and your centers. These are my bibliography, if you will, for my presentation. I definitely recommend the Sacred Enneagram. It's got some Richard Rohr in there. It's really good stuff. It comes at it from more of a spiritual background. The Road Back to You is where the quotes came from of each type. And that's just a really good, straightforward kind of roadmap to the Enneagram. And the Honest Enneagram is more about self-work and reflection and using the Enneagram to better yourself. The Liturgist has a great podcast on the Enneagram. Again, it serves as a introduction to the types and kind of a perspective. They have a lot of interviews from different people within the types. And then if you're a music person at all or a fan of Sleeping at Last, the band, they actually have a whole album that each song represents the Enneagram types, which is like really powerful to me. I love listening to those. Additionally, if any of you guys have taken the test, that's awesome. If you have not taken a test, the quickest and easiest or cheapest one would be the Eclectic Energies Enneagram test. You can Google it. It's really easy to find. If you want to pay $10 and do one that's a little bit more in depth, the Wagner Enneagram is one of the top ones that are recommended. There's the website there. It's called the WEPS. I will tell you that type 8s tend to be non-aware, and I can say that because I am an 8. So if you're an 8, you will often test as a 3 because you're not as self-aware as you should be in order to type correctly. So the WEPS is a little bit more descriptive and tends to kind of pull 8s out more than the Eclectic Energies one does. So I hope that you guys take a look at the paths to growth, that you're excited to start the work of some self-development to be a better leader, a better team player at your centers. And I encourage you to reach out to me with any questions or feedback from this presentation. Thank you, guys.